in the country. Now, the study found that relations between South Africans of different races are mainly positive. Does the shutdown in predominantly coloured communities put a dent in this? Well, to find out more, we're joined live in studio by Dr Trevor Ngwane, a researcher in social change at the University of Johannesburg. Doctor, thank you very much indeed for your time. I guess it's good news in terms of social harmony, racial harmony in South Africa.
Yeah, it's very important that we overcome the divisions of the past, especially racial prejudice, othering other people. So it's a step forward if people feel better about each other and living with each other.
So when you see scenes of what's happening today in predominantly coloured areas, when you see scenes in Westbury, what's your take on that? Is it a lightning rod for a heated discussion about race?
Yeah, well, it just so happens that what is happening in Eldos and other coloured townships, so-called, is what is happening and is already happening in African townships, in all black townships. So the only problem is that when it happens in coloured townships, there is a racial skew. So actually, these townships are facing exactly the same problems that the African townships are facing. So it's just a question of interpretation. So, but at the same time, you cannot blame the people, although you must challenge them, you know, and show them that there's another way of phrasing their problems. You cannot really blame them because apartheid geography continues. So people feel that they are living in the same places they were living in under apartheid in so-called coloured ghettos.
So could this be seen as a pushback against the torment, the misery of working class?
Yeah, it is. We can say this is a section of the working class coming out and joining the rest who are already fighting for service delivery. It just so happens that they feel a particular kind of exclusion and marginalization because of the history of racial differences. But to be firm, you know, it's not an Olympics of who is suffering more than the other, you know. So you'll hear some colored people saying, you know, under apartheid, we're not white enough, now we're not black enough, which may be true, but when you look at statistics, the colored communities are suffering, but their suffering is slightly less than that of the Africans.
You know, the coloured community will tell you that they're feeling marginalised. You know, you've heard the sentiment the whole week, even last week, from Westbury to Eldorado Park, predominantly coloured areas. What do you think is fueling this?
Well, as I say, you know, it's apartheid left us with a consciousness of a hierarchy of identities, racial identities. So when people feel that they're not getting what they want, then they refer back to those identities. Remember that during apartheid, the hierarchy was the other way around. The colors were on top, the Africans were below. Now they feel that the hierarchy is turned upside down. You know, the Africans, the Zulus, you know, come first, now are pushed back. We have the same problem in Durban, where Zulu nationalism competes with Indian nationalism. So these are issues which, you know, have to be addressed. Actually, I would say that coloured townships, Indian townships like Chatsworth, you know, those people must actually join together with their African brothers and sisters because they are fighting the same fight. Yeah.
Doctor, just stand by. You know, we've been asking our viewers to give us a call with regards to certain topics that we're discussing, and I understand that we have a video note. Remember, the number is 081-732-8421. Let's play that video.
My video is, I mean, like Griselda's keep asking us, do we know the drug lords? Do we know the people that is causing this in our areas? And so it goes deeper than just understanding who the drug lords are and what is happening. So-called colored areas has always been on the back end of anything in terms of development, in terms of government giving us anything. So yes, we've sat back and sometimes we've not really wanted most things and freebies and handouts, and so we've had protests last year, and so in terms of housing in the areas and so forth, some of our areas has got houses that was built back when, but the leg effect that the government needs to understand is that leaving this, it's got this problem to getting to where we are now. It is a deeper social economic problem that we have in our areas. So not just police coming out to Enadale tomorrow and policing and getting these drug dealers out of the area would alleviate our problems as we have it currently. I made an example on social media. I said, take an unemployed guy. He starts off as a car guard, for example, and in a developer area, the guy that's sitting in the car is pulling out. He gives that young man a 5 rand or 10 rand, or at times I've heard 50 rand or 100 rand, because that driver in that car is able to, because he can afford to give this car guard that. Let's say that car guard is a guy that's struggling with the drug problem. He can maintain his drug problem. Let's take our area. The guy is lucky to get a 50 cents from a vehicle driver, so looking after his vehicle. How is he going to maintain his drug addiction? I'm not saying we're condoning drugs. We're not saying that. We're not saying that we haven't taken these drug lords out. It goes deeper than that. I'm just giving very basic, on the surface examples here. Take a kid that's on drugs. Drugs is not just a colored issue. It's not just a so-called colored area issue. Drugs is utilized all over. So at the point that if you are a drug user in a family that has tenderpreneurs, for example, you are able to maintain your drug addiction, for example. Take it from someone that does not. What he's going to do, he's going to revert to crime, and so to be able to tackle that. And then it comes back to, what has the government done all these years in terms of fighting this drug distributions and addictions? It goes deeper than that. I'm just giving these examples on a surface level. I hope you guys really play this video or my voice note as you requested, that we can send our videos and voice notes through. This is Lyle. I'm from Enadale, and this is just my point I'm bringing across.
We really do appreciate your voice notes as well as your videos. Thank you very much indeed for that. Doctor, I mean, he hit the nail on the head, isn't it, with regards to the social ills? It cuts across all race groups, isn't it? But I guess the operative word is deeper. Digging deeper into the social economic situation of a community, and digging deep in terms of addressing the wrongs of the past in order to move forward.
Yeah, I think to simplify the problem, or how we should approach it, we should distinguish between what I can call underlying causes, structural causes, and then the issues. You know, so if there is inequality, there is joblessness, you're going to have an issue of crime and drugs. You're going to have an issue of housing. You're going to have an issue of domestic violence, as people get kind of frustrated and take it out. And then thirdly, you have triggers. So something happens, like the death of Mrs. Peterson, who died in Westbury. And then people say enough is enough. So, of course, you know, Begicele, the minister, is basically involved in a damage control exercise. You know, there's a trigger, there's an issue. He's moving in quickly. But the government must do more than that. It must also come up with structural changes, address the problem of poverty, the problem of unemployment, and of course, the problem of people feeling marginalized. As you know, that during the struggle for apartheid, Steve Biko was able to unite black people and said, whether you are Indian, colored, or African, you are oppressed. We are the blacks. But we see that conception is unraveling now. I had the ANC leader in KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle saying that coloreds and Indians are not blacks, so they shouldn't be qualify for black economic empowerment. That kind of discourse is wrong. We should feel we are one.
How has policies such as affirmative action contributed to the relations between races?
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to explain. So, on the one hand, the government felt that it had to use apartheid racial categories, because how are you going to identify those who were oppressed, who were marginalized before, unless you use the same racial categories? But doing that has also led to the perpetuation of a racial consciousness. And as I've just given an example, where now people say, no, you coloreds, you suffered less than us. That is why I was talking about the Olympics of oppression. So instead of thinking that way, we should actually uplift everyone. You know, that slogan, a better life for all, jobs for all, I think that would unite us rather than, in fact, race is a construct. It's something which, human beings create and perpetuate and kind of shape as they go along. Yeah.
How do we move past the Olympics of oppression, as you put it? I mean, fair enough, social cohesion dialogue is important. That's we can underscore that. But what more needs to be done in order to, get us over that line?
Yeah, so when we dig deeper, so it means also we have to look into history.
Yeah.
So we have to look at the fundamental causes of our suffering. Well, what happened is that someone came and took people's land. Someone came and turned some people into cheap labor. Someone felt that in order to control and be in power, I must use divide and rule. I mean, the apartheid bosses, they came up with techniques like running a pen through your hair in order to categorize you as colored or Indian or African. So this was all a construction. So we should go back to first principles and actually address the source of exploitation, which is, the exploitation of labor and other human beings.
Do you think land is being seen along racial lines and to an extent polarizing South Africans?
I think unless land can be addressed in terms of redistribution, until the wealth is redistributed, until the provision of services from policing to roads to healthcare, I don't think we're going to move forward. For example, South Africa has a two-tier system of health, of education. There's the private, there's the public. It's got a two-tier system of security. People never think about that. The security industry in South Africa is the biggest in Africa, maybe in the world in terms of per capita, which means that those who are rich are actually well protected, and those who are poor are left in the hands of the slow-moving SAPS. So this is what we have to address and get rid of these inequalities.
What about language? It's inextricably linked to one's identity, isn't it? One's culture. What part does it play in terms of forging unity?
Well, this is quite important because remember, when the students in 2015 rebelled, they were calling for decolonization. They were saying, where are our languages in the curriculum, in the books that we read? So, if your language is pushed aside, in fact, some of our children, we are the wrong generation. I think you are younger than me.
Yeah.
But parents my age have tended to discourage their kids from learning African languages, their own languages. You must learn English so you can make it in the world. So the youth are saying, but my identity, who am I? I mean, I don't know Zulu, I don't know Xhosa, I don't know Afrikaans. So I think language is very important. That thinking by the parents, that colonial mentality, is because the inequality continues. Yeah. The people with power, the people who control the jobs, are the English, are the Afrikaners. So that is what is going on. That is why we have to attack also the underlying causes.
Should we tackle them at a young age, isn't it? I mean, our education system needs to come to the fore in order to, get the conversations going and get people, knowledgeable about who they are and who other people are. Because living in an insular community, it doesn't help, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a story of a young Indian guy in Durban who came out in the news. He opted to study Zulu. Yeah. Those are the kind of stories we want to hear, where people are reaching out, to each other and wanting to learn more about each other's languages, each other's cultures. The hierarchy of races is also a hierarchy of culture. Some other people's cultures and languages are looked down upon.
Doctor, really appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you very much indeed for giving us a greater perspective of race relations in South Africa, as well as the way forward. That was Dr. Trevor Ngwane, a researcher from the University of Johannesburg. Let's take a bit of a break. We'll be back after this.